I'm Mylisa Chimento, and stay tuned for part 2 of my interview with Shannon Bream right now on Live in Tallahassee.
Mylisa, look at this footage last week. There you are. Interview with Shannon Bream, and you guys had such a great conversation and a great time. You're seeing it on the screen here. It was really amazing. But now back out here, I mean, that was pretty amazing for you to talk to her.
It was really, she was so nice and so kind, and it was really great to talk to her and see kind of like, you know, what was going on in her world the week of the inauguration.
Yeah.
You know, and all the preparation, and then also hearing about all of her, you know, memories of, you know, being here in Tallahassee.
Man, she left the studio, left her set inauguration week to talk to Mylisa at Live in Tallahassee.
I know.
So that was amazing. So she had so much to say, so many great things to say that we couldn't fit it all in last week's show. So we're gonna have a part 2 today and a part 3 next week.
I know. She was so nice to spend so much time with me in the studio and you know, reminisce about her days in Tallahassee and also what the current events, what she's doing up in Washington on the national stage. So it was really, really exciting.
And who knows? You might see Mylisa up there next, working at Fox News. Who knows? National.
Who knows?
Anyway, all right, let's go on. Let's see part 2 of Mylisa's interview with Shannon Bream.
Shannon, while transitioning from law to journalism, it's such a fascinating leap. What motivated you to make that shift, and how did you get your foot in the door of the media world?
So I'm a total news junkie. I mean, that's something that started really early on in my life. I joke about it, but really was true with my parents. Like on an election night, I would be sneaking down the hallway and trying to look at the TV screen and watch the electoral vote count come in. And I mean, I love that kind of stuff. Anytime there was a breaking news situation, I wanted to know all the details and what was happening. And I didn't really think about it as a career. I mean, I was a business student undergrad and went to law school, but there was always that passion for the story, for the news that I never kind of got over it. And so I had a really weird path in that while I was practicing law in Tampa, I also made some friends at the local TV station, a friend of a friend at the ABC affiliate in Tampa, WFTS, and eventually went to them and said, could I shadow here? Could I come volunteer or intern? And I was almost 30 at that point. So I was able to get an internship, but I had to do it for college credit. So I worked that out through USF. University of South Florida was kind enough, a professor there within the communication school, to work with me to say, like, listen, you're going to have to take a news writing class because it's completely different than writing for the legal word and these briefs and these motions. That's not how you do it for news. You've got to learn that. And it is a totally different skill. So I said, great, I will take this news writing class. And he said, and then I will also okay your internship credit for you to be able to go work at the station. So whenever I could, overnights or weekends away from my legal career, I would go and just shadow anyone and work and do what I could there. And that's where I got my first job. Eventually, I left my firm, took a leap of faith, and you know, I was making coffee and answering phones and working overnights and loving every minute of it. I knew that if I was willing to do all that stuff and take a pay cut and be so excited to go to work every day, that I was in the right place.
Well, you obviously were. And moving on from that experience, you know, you covered the Supreme Court for Fox News, and it's such an important and complex role. What stands out to you most about your time covering the nation's highest court?
You're sitting there for a moment in history. I mean, you really are, whether it's, you know, overturning bans on gay marriage, whether it's issues of abortion, whether it's presidential immunity, who can be on the ballot. I mean, the court is really tasked with the most difficult decisions that we as Americans could possibly make. We give it to these 9 people and ask them to take the weight of that. So I so appreciate every moment I get to sit there in the courtroom. You know, it's one of the places that doesn't have cameras in the courtroom. So I feel like I need to come out and tell people exactly what happened, why it matters to them, why it matters to their life, and in an everyday way. So I just feel so blessed to do it. I feel a little terrified to do it too. When the days we get opinions, you never know what you're getting, just that you're getting something. And so as you know, you load it now on the computer. It used to be we only got hard copies pre-COVID. You'd have to get your hard copy and be running to your camera and trying to decipher it at the same time. There's a lot of adrenaline that goes with that. But it is kind of a terrifying proposition at times. But I really feel blessed, and it's a privilege to do these things that hopefully for our viewers make some kind of impact on their lives. Like it makes sense to them about why it matters and what the justices have done to do that accurately and clearly for them. And everything that I learned in my years at Florida State College of Law, I use every day in doing that job. And I don't think I would have been nearly as equipped or prepared without those years.
Well, you do a great job at it, Shannon. And I know I always look forward to your report once there's a decision made. And for many, many years, I've watched you report about the rulings at the Supreme Court. So thank you for all that. We all thank you for that. And as we move, and as you moved into hosting Fox News at night, what were some of the biggest challenges and rewards of transitioning into a nightly news role?
When you've got a show every day and you got to fill an hour of it, and it's really up to you and your team what you want to pick, it's a ton of freedom, but it's responsibility too. I mean, obviously, whatever the top story of the day is, the top two or three, you're going to do those. Like for now, obviously, it's the wildfires, it's the upcoming inauguration, it's the Middle East peace deal, how those things try to hold together. So you're going to do those things, but then you have a lot of room. And doing a nighttime show, we had some fun. I mean, we would do things where we would try new foods, and some of them were terrible, jelly beans that were flavored like Thanksgiving dinner. I mean, you can have a little bit of fun at night that's a little bit different than the super serious things that you do in the front of the show, but a ton of live guests and lawmakers. So you're booking a full hour every day. And that's a challenge too, but a lot of fun. And you have a little bit more time with people and with stories. So definitely some challenges, but man, what a privilege to have that space to hopefully, by the end of the show, have left people with some laughs and something to comfort them as they're going to bed, having heard the really difficult news up front, but also having a chance to breathe and to enjoy some of the stories about heroes. And we would often highlight those folks who are doing things in their communities, who run into a burning building to save somebody. I mean, those are the kind of folks that we wanted to highlight too, and give people a full hour of something that was a little bit different than they might get the rest of the day.
Yes, it's true. And have being in television also, we know how filling the show and covering all the things that are important to your viewers. It's a lot goes into it as you just described. But now as the host of Fox News Sunday, you're in one of the most important roles in political journalism. And what's it like to have a front row seat at some of the most important moments shaping our nation?
I pinch myself all the time. And I literally will say, I'm this kid from Tallahassee who was a news junkie who is actually getting to sit in the middle of these stories now. I mean, going to the White House and having lunch with President Biden. It's what am I doing here? There are times that I ask myself that, like, I feel so deeply blessed and hopefully able to come away from those interactions and then be able to share this with the people of America. We are their servants in the media. We are there to get them facts, to get them information, to press, to get, answers to stories and difficult things that need to be investigated. So I feel a great privilege with it, but, the weight and the responsibility of it as well. So I love politics. And so, I get to host top Democrats, top Republicans every week. We get to dive into really meaty stuff. And so it's just one of those things that I would have said years ago is my dream job, and I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm a person of faith, so I think the Lord opens and closes doors. So I'm just really thankful that He's given me this season of doing this job.
Yes, and you do it so well, Shannon. And how do you approach balancing like hard-hitting political analysis and with creating a space for meaningful civil conversations as well?
You know what? So many people who have strong, passionate, political feelings, and we've just come through an election year, and people very much had a ton of emotion in those campaigns, in those candidates, and all the crazy twists and turns that we had in 2024. So sometimes it is the most, I think, extreme voices that get the most attention. And for me, I want to have people from across the political spectrum, but I want to give them a chance to answer the question. There are times you're going to have to press them. They're going to feel like it's a bit of a gotcha. But what I really want to do is have a conversation. I want people to explain, if you've moved on an issue, what was your evolution? Help us to understand how you got there. If you're a no on something that to a lot of people seems like a common sense yes, what's your reason? I mean, there are reasons behind these, and I want to give people a chance to explain themselves, and to, when they've done something where they need to be called to account, to make sure that we ask those questions too. But I think there's a very civil way to do that. And so it's always important to me that the show is diverse and that we get as many viewpoints as possible and that we give people a chance to explain their side of the argument.
Yes. And you've seen so much over the course of your career and experienced so much. And if you could go back and give advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Failure is okay. And getting a no is not the end of the story. I always share with young people that my very first TV job I got, there was a boss there in Tampa who took a chance on me after I'd been working overnights and producing and doing all these things, running the prompter and making the coffee. I think I eventually wore him down and he said, okay, once in a while, once you've done your job duties, we'll let you go cover a story if there's anything that needs to be covered and we're out of, bodies of legit reporters to go. And I started getting to do that. And I was just starting to make my way doing both the behind the scenes and on air. And I came in one day and my boss and his boss were gone. There was just a change in management for the station. And all the seasoned reporters knew this can be tricky because when that happens, a lot of times they're going to want to bring in fresh faces. They're, people they've worked with before. And sometimes that means changes for the current reporters. And so I just was making no money and doing a ton of work and so happy. I thought, I'm not worried about it. And then a couple weeks into the new guy and his tenure, I got called in and the head of HR was sitting there on a Friday afternoon. And I thought, I'm getting promoted. But the truth is, if HR is sitting there on Friday afternoon, you're probably not getting promoted. And that boss told me that I was terrible. He said I was the worst person he'd ever seen on TV and that I would never make it in the business. And it was really humbling and embarrassing and heartbreaking and really difficult. But it was good for me in so many ways that I couldn't have seen at the time because it was just too painful. But it made me be realistic with myself about how much I had to learn. And I still think there's always tons of room for improvement. And it made me realize that I was going to have to work really hard and I was going to have to get better and I was going to have to be honest with myself. And so it was a humbling experience, but, I think there's a lot to learn from the business. And so there are just times that you got to ride it out and it's not always going to be easy. So I would say to my younger self, you're going to get no, you may get fired. You're going to have people who don't see in you what you're hoping that somebody will see. But it's okay. Keep moving. There will be somebody who gets you, who sees your talents, who sees maybe that you're a diamond in the rough and that you need some work. And I would say reach out to people also who are doing what you want to be successful at, because I had so many people along the way who would give me time. I would say, can I buy you lunch and pick your brain? And there are people out there who will be happy to spend time with you, whatever your chosen field or dream is. Maybe you want to be the world's greatest mom and you want to invest in your home. There are moms out there who will invest in you. You want to be an engineer or pilot. I mean, there are people who will give you time. So don't take no as the final word and look for other people that can give you some mentorship.
Well, that is great advice, Shannon, and I know that our audience will appreciate that, especially all the young college students and young professionals we have here, in this community.
All right, and that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Live in Tallahassee. And be sure you join us next week because what's happening?
Segment 3 of interview with Shannon Bream.
You got to be here for part 3. It's even better than the first 2 segments. You're going to love it. But that is going to wrap it up because if there is one place to be on a Thursday night, it's got to be right here, 7 p.m. on Live in Tallahassee.
Thanks for watching Live in Tallahassee. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram for more content.